Good morning, fifth grade artist. This is Miss Stoll, and I wanted to walk you through drawing 3D forms or 3D shapes, trying to make flat shapes look real. So, for instance, instead of a square, you could have a cube. So, I'm going to take you step by step through these different shapes. First, some rounded shapes, cylinders, cones, and spheres, and then cubes, any kind of prisms, pyramids, things with flat edges. So basically things with round edges and things with flat edges. Now, if we were doing this in class, this would be an entire class period. We would do this together, kind of step by step. Since we're e-learning, you can just feel free. I won't really pause the way I would in class or walk around and check your work. Instead, pause the video, try some of these shapes out. And I'm also going to give you alternative ways to draw. It's up to you if you want to try those or not, or how much you want to do. But save your drawings that you're doing the practice, because on the turn-in document, there are instructions on which ones I want to see that you practiced. And then next week, we're going to be doing a whole project putting these together. So if we're ready to go, we're going to start with rounded shapes first. So cylinders. Cylinders, you start by drawing something known as an ellipse. Now, you're probably thinking, that's an oval, Mrs. Stoll. It is an oval, but it's actually a circle. Like if you were sitting and looking at a cylinder, here's the top of my drink. This is a cylinder, this lid is, but it's a circle on the top, but if you see it from the side, it looks like an oval, and that's something known as an ellipse. So, but just for drawing purposes, think of it as an oval. I'm going to draw two straight lines down the side, and here is where a lot of fifth graders mess up. They do this at the bottom. Now, if we were in class, I would be saying, what doesn't look right about that? That is a straight line. You don't want to do that. Instead, you want to be drawing a curve across the bottom. Now, if you were in math class and you were looking at this, you would be seeing through. You'd probably draw the back end of this too. You'd have a circle on the top, circle on the bottom, and you'd see through. But for art class, we don't necessarily want to draw see-through shapes for everything. So you don't want to see that. So that's how you draw the cylinder. Again, oval, straight lines, curve at the bottom. Now, cylinders can take lots of different forms. They don't have to all look like a can. You could of course do them on the side. Draw sideways. Maybe a can is spilling over. Maybe you're going to draw something pouring out of it. You could also alter the shape of it. So let's say instead of going straight down, what if I did angles on the side? And then as long as I curve the bottom there, it's kind of like a cone with its top cut off actually. Or what if I did the reverse, made it large on top? Maybe it could start to look more like a bowl. Or let's see here. You could even get fancy. Let's see, what if I wanted to make a vase? I could start kind of combining some shapes. And maybe I could even combine a sphere or a circular bottom like this. I must have something on my table here that's bumping me. And do this. You could start thinking about what shapes these could form. If you did really short sides, it could be like a hockey puck, a coin, a plate. You could start to combine things. So let's say now maybe let's put this vase on a plate. I could start a little ways up the side. And there we go. Now I have a very simple plate. I put two shapes together. Or what if I want this on a stand? Now I could go ahead and I could draw a stand underneath. And now I put, a whole bunch of different rounded cylindrical forms together. Next up is cones. Now the cones are very similar to cylinders. You're going to have a circle at one end. So if you're drawing where you can see the bottom of a cone, you would start with that ellipse and you just draw a V. There you go, there's a cone. If you wanted to draw, it's even easier actually to draw the other way. So I just draw an upside down V and a curve underneath. And of course you could try putting something in the cone. So let's say if you wanted to do that, I could draw my cone. Let's get the pencil out here so I can erase. Draw my ellipse. Draw my cone. Let's say if I really wanted to make it an ice cream cone, I could erase the back part of it. So I could put some ice cream in, and here I could do drawing part of a sphere. I could draw a rounded form, put little dots in it. Maybe it's, mint chocolate chip. And there's an ice cream cone. Now to make it even look more rounded, or anytime you even have a cylinder, anything like this, you want it to look round. Instead of drawing straight lines across the side, I'm going to draw curves. So if I draw curves around it, that makes it look more round. And then if you want the waffle cone look, I could draw like that, up from one central point at the bottom. And we're going to talk more about shading next week when we do the project, but I could just for now, just for fun, I could even add a little bit of shading in, and there you go. Start getting some shading on my ice cream cone, and that's what starts to make it look 3D. But you're just starting with some very simple shapes. So that's a cone, and we'll move right into spheres. You're thinking, well, of course, a sphere, Mrs. Stoll, it's just a circle, and it won't really look much like a sphere until we've added the shading. But there are some things you could do to a sphere to make it look rounded, just like this. And one is to add a curved line around the center, kind of like the equator, although it looks a little higher up than the equator. I could even add lines of longitude. There we go. Now, that no longer looks quite so flat and two-dimensional. It looks more three-dimensional. Let's see. You could even do a half of a sphere. What if I started with my oval, and then instead of drawing lines down, I drew half of a circle. Now it looks like kind of a bowl shape or half of a sphere. So there's lots of different options you could try with that. And then you could start putting together a lot of these as well, just like we saw here. You could start putting shapes together or turning them into things. So I could turn this into a bowl. I could put, a spoon in the bowl, erase that because I can't see through it. Then more ice cream, and put some lumps of ice cream in here and add some shading. Shading inside, and I'll start to make this 3D shape. All right, on to other cubes and prisms. So if we were in class, I'd say, how many of you know how to draw cubes like this? You draw one square, you overlap another square, you connect them. There you go, there's a cube. And if we were in math class, or you see illustrations like this probably in your math book, this is a totally fine way to draw a cube. And if this is the way you feel comfortable, please continue doing that. But for the purposes of our project, we probably don't want to do see-through cubes. So then you have to come in and you have to erase what you can't see through. So especially if you're a person who draws, presses really heavy with their pencil, this can always be a problem. So now I've got this cube here, looks like that. Now, if you feel confident doing this, great, continue. Just maybe draw kind of lightly as you're drawing your cube. But I want to show you some alternative ways to draw cubes that maybe don't involve erasing. Now the second one here, I'm going to make the same cube, but do it without having to erase a bunch of lines. So I'm going to draw my square or rectangle. This can be a rectangular prism as well. And I'm going to start going to each of the corners. And I'm going to draw a diagonal line. Not vertical, not horizontal, but diagonal. That. And I'm going to draw a diagonal line from each corner. Now here's the key. They have to go in the same direction. You can't have one going here, and then one going straight. They have to all look the same. So if this diagonal line goes to the right, this diagonal line goes to the right, I'm going to try to keep them about the same length. And then this one here too, it's going to be aimed in the same direction. You can probably see where this is going. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to make a horizontal line to connect. Now, oops, I didn't make that quite long enough. I can go back and I can extend that. This one is vertical. Now we go. There we have our cube or a rectangular prism, all ready to go. Now this works too. You can go other directions. It does not have to always be to the right like I just did for my first one. I can also make these really long or short. What if I make this really, really short? They're all going to the left. Connect them together like that. Now I just have a very flat rectangular prism. And I can actually do this for any shape. So let's say I want to make let's make a trapezoid. So if I make a trapezoid, I can make a trapezoidal prism. I can do the same thing. Angle, angle, angle. Horizontal line to match this. Now this is an angle here, so I'm not going to go vertical. I'm going to go an angle, and you can see the things on my table here. So move that over. It's making little pit marks. There we go. And there is a trapezoidal prism. Now, how to know whether or not I should do every corner? Now, on a square, you're just doing 3. This would be going through the shape, so we don't want to see it. That's like this one over here. For here, same thing. I would go through the shape, so I wouldn't do it. So you can always ask yourself, which corner should I include? And when we move on to 1-point perspective later this quarter, this concept will be kind of important. So that's making any shape into a prism, including, let's say, triangles. So here's a triangle. Go to the left on this one. Angle, angle. I don't need 3 on this one because there's only 3 vertices. I can't see through this one, so I'm just going to go with 2. And this is an angle, so I'll make this an angle. And then I can go back and I can erase these. This is if you want to show a prism with the front facing you. Like it's a cube or a square, like this little eraser here. It's in front of you. But what if you wanted to show something with, from maybe a different angle? Maybe you want to see a corner facing you. Well, there's some different ways you can do that as well. So that's what I'm going to show you next. So drawing something with the corner facing you, there's a few ways that you can approach this. I always used to call this the open book way. Here, if I draw a V that's kind of really wide open, and then another V underneath of it that matches. And then I go vertical, vertical, vertical. Now if I close up the top with an open V going the other way, really low, I have a cube with its corner facing me. I could also do this to make a triangular prism. So instead of just drawing these 2 lines, I would draw a straight line going across. And if we were in class, I'd be prompting you to tell me how you could think to make that a triangular prism. But here you go, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you. And you notice this kind of angles in, but this gives me an idea. What if I made these with angles kind of going in? Make that a little longer there, connect that up. You could start making a whole bunch of different shapes using these general ideas of how to do this. And this is why practicing these shapes is really important, trying them out from different angles. Now here, let's say if I can even start putting some shapes together. Here, actually, you know what? I'll show you another. This is just kind of a fun trick. If you want to make a piece of pie or a piece of cake, start with a rectangle and make a little sort of triangle on top. There you go. There's like a piece of pie. Or if I even kind of curve this line more, and then maybe I'll just add a little bit here, turn this into some crust. Maybe thicken this up, add a line here, do some dots. And then I could even start, maybe I'll put a dollop of whipped cream on the top. So kind of like a round sort of form, curve the bottom. And then there you go. I have like a little dollop of whipped cream on a piece of pie. I could take this further. I could put this on a plate. I can make it a very thin plate and leave it like that, or I could add it like it's a cylinder. And now it's actually on a plate. Or what if it's on a stand? I could curve these. It's like a cylinder. I've just curved in the sides, curve the bottom so it looks round. Now add that. Now I have put a whole bunch of 3D shapes together. So if you're thinking, wow, I can't draw something like that, I just took it one step at a time and turned them into something. So I could even go back to some of my shapes and think, well, what could I turn this into? Could this be a candy bar or an eraser, which is what I was thinking of? What if this really was an open book? What if I wanted to draw, this is what I did actually when I was a kid. I used to draw little hands on the side and a person's head, buried in a book right over here. I could turn it into something, but I could actually make it a 3D book by drawing the parts of the book right there. Maybe give this, give it a spine. Make that look rounded at the bottom. And I could start to turn things into objects with cylinders. Or things like this, like you had, say, an ice cream cone, that could be changed into something. I could make, here's my vase. What if I made, some flowers coming out of the vase? I could have things, spilling out, pouring out of here, and then I would just have to erase this. Maybe get some drops of liquid. Maybe it's a glass of water. Here's some Coke. I'll draw a label, a curve around the side, and draw a label of maybe it's paint. Maybe it's paint spilling out. Try to write sideways here. And start to add things like that. And that's when your pictures can really come together. And so eventually, starting next week, we're going to practice. Your assignment is going to be to practice these shapes and show me a picture of your practice. And then next week, you're going to be coming up with your own unique combination of shapes. So here on my monitor, here's an example from earlier this year. We're going to learn about shading and shadowing as well. So we're going to start putting them together, but don't let that intimidate you right away. We're just starting off with drawing simple shapes. Again, these are the ones we're going to be practicing. And nope, I see I forgot pyramids. So real quickly, let me show you how to draw a pyramid. Some quick ways to do that. Triangle. Then you add a line down either the right or the left, just not going all the way. So I always tell kids it looks kind of like a little party hat there. But then I join it up. There we go, pyramid. And if I really want to make it look like a pyramid, horizontal lines across the front. This is diagonal, so I follow diagonally this way. There we go, we have a pyramid. You could even think about upside down. I could draw a parallelogram, then just have these pieces come together. There we go, upside down pyramid. So, I hope this was informative and you begin to practice these shapes, and there will be directions in the assignment about what shapes you need to show me that you practice. So you can have as many sketch papers as you want and just take a picture of all of them together just to show me that you practice these forms. All right, everybody, have a great day.